I had done all the things that you were supposed to do, which was to get 3 advanced degrees. Terminal degree doesn't mean I'm dead. I'm still breathing.
Did you feel like you stayed in the academia for a reason, or yeah, what do you use it for, and what are some things that it's helped you with?
AI tools are extraordinarily useful, and there are things that they help you save time with.
All right, welcome everyone to the Unstoppablepreneur Show. I'm super excited to have the Doctor of Digital co-host, the Aftermath podcast, Mick. And I was asking him, like, so what is it that you do? And he shared with me some really fascinating things, which I'm really excited because I still don't quite know what he does. So I'm super excited to dive in and then hear some of your story and hopefully some wisdom that you can shine some light on and hopefully inspire some of us. So take it away, man. Yeah, introduce yourself and tell us what you're passionate about.
All right. Well, Tyler, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. So I'll put it that way. But I've done a number of things. So I started out as a standard liberal arts professor, and I thought that was the ultimate goal. And so I had done all the things that you were supposed to do, which was to get 3 advanced degrees. Terminal degree doesn't mean I'm dead. I'm still breathing. And 9 certificates, educational technology and executive management. And after having done the stand-up professor route for a while, I started moving into consulting, particularly educational consulting. And since then, I've transitioned out of academia. So I always call myself a recovering academic. So I'm still alive, but I'm doing things that I think are still authentic and educational and inspiration. So I have a couple of podcasts that are out, the Doctor of Digital, obviously, my nom de plume. I also co-host the Aftermath podcast. So a couple of those, I've got a couple books out. Burning America is a novel, and On Track Ian Hunter is about my favorite songwriter, Ian Hunter. And I've got some other projects in mind. And so I'm still juggling and still trying to figure out what is all I want to do, but I'm at it.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about that transition, because you said, and here's what I find a lot of entrepreneurs, when someone wants to go do something, we tend to turn to education first, which is get educated. And then I find some people kind of get addicted to that, where it's like,
Mhm.
education is nice, but it's also kind of safe. And yet you put yourself out there, you've written some books, you're doing the entrepreneurial journey. So talk a little bit about that transition. How was it? Was it easy? Did you have, did you feel like you stayed in the academia for a reason, or yeah, just dive into it for us.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's one of those things about if you want to be an entrepreneur, and it's something I also learned about technology, it changes really quickly. So there I was, your standard liberal arts professor. In 1994, they had this thing come along called the internet. I go, okay, this is going to change everything. And it certainly changed education. So I had more of an entrepreneurial spirit, and I said I should be starting to consult, because once I started setting up distance learning courses, which I did at the time for the university I work for, I said, well, I'm sure there's other organizations, right? They need to do this. It saves time. It's cheaper. You can duplicate the material, hence the digital thing that's going on. Like everything's going to be digital now. So once I'd done that, then I started saying, okay, there are also some ways that you can move up in the world too, in terms of being more responsible, more ability to do things and have an impact. So from there, I started doing things such as campus dean, executive region director. So you have a bigger influence, but also I'm picking up skills the whole time. And that's why I said it's really important for the entrepreneurs out there and younger people too. My father worked in the same place for 35 years. Then he started his own business for 10 more years. So about 45 years, he essentially did exactly the same thing. Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
So you really have to be adept and agile. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, make sure you're watching when the winds of change coming. You've got to be the person to notice that and to jump on. I'm a little bit more of an advantage because I'm a trained historian, specifically a historian of religion. So I always think, well, everything I've seen in the past really gives me an insight into the future. And so typically now we have things people are talking about, say, artificial intelligence, and anything that's coming in new, try it and certainly see which you can apply. So I'll give you an example. In the gold rush in 1848, it's not so much the people who went out to the gold rush and made a lot of money making and finding gold. It was the person who had the
Found the
pickaxe
tools.
and the person
Yeah,
who had all the tools. That's the person who got rich. And likewise, people who started doing things, the businesses that people need. Well, they have to stay somewhere, so hotels, they have to eat, so restaurants, and everything else that comes along with it. So if you're an entrepreneur, look for those things. It's not necessarily the gold in the hills, but it's really the gold in what people need and what you can answer for them, the problems that you can solve for them.
that's awesome. And with everything that's happening right now and your expertise in history and just the study, so my wife's super big fan of history. She studied it intensively, and she also did a lot of music, and she got her degree in statesmanship. So learning about how patterns of history repeat and
Sure.
how to influence others and stuff. So I'm really fascinated by with what you know. What what's on the horizon this year, next year? What's your foresight of patterns that you've seen, and as an entrepreneur, maybe what's some advice?
You know, there's that famous Chinese expression, that proverb about may you live in interesting times, which really explains a lot. So when you're living in interesting times, that's the perfect opportunity for the entrepreneur to move because that means things are changeable. And every time things are changing significantly, the person who has insight into it is the person who's going to benefit. So here's a little bit of history technology really quickly. So how long did it take to have refrigerators in most homes? How long did it take to people to get an automobile? How about a radio, a television, the internet? And my point there is that if you see those technologies being picked up and bought and implemented, the rate has gone very fast and much faster with each subsequent technological change. So likewise, the person who's really adept when it comes to things like AI or the latest technology, you're going to be at the forefront. I always tell people I'm at the bleeding edge. I mean, make it bleed, make it hurt. But when it hurts, you're going to figure out how it can be used. And that's really the patterns to be looking for because there's patterns. Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but there are echoes. And that's
I
absolutely the
love that.
case.
That's super cool. So tell us a little bit about some of the patterns that you're seeing in with even with like AI. Are there things that you're studying or doing or applying to even your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. I use about 5 different AI tools. And the reason I do that is because this is unlike some previous technologies where you could figure out what the internet was going to be for. But the AI is developing so rapidly. I use about 5 and I compare them. And I've seen some are a little bit ahead, then the other one falls behind, and some are better at some things than others. So I think with that rate of change being so exponential, you have to really stay on top of it and also to see what they can be used for and how to use them effectively. So depending on your prompt, depending on how you're actually using a tool, because AI is now definitely going to be a very useful tool across the board in all kinds of professions and all kinds of industries. And so whatever your industry is, figure out how it can be used in your particular industry. So people would say, there are some who say, well, it's going to replace jobs. Well, yes, welcome to the real world. So did the farming revolution. So did the industrial revolution. It's just, this is the pattern of history. It's the person who is very adept and very agile to see the winds of change and to be out there in front. So if you go to bleeding edge and then maybe a cutting edge, because there's definitely a curve, because the earliest people see how it can be applied and then people start getting on board. And before you know it, if you're really adept, you're looking because something else is coming down the road.
That's cool. And tell us a little bit about what you use tools for and some of the cool things. And maybe by the time we listen to this, those will be inept and new ones will be out. But at
Yeah,
least currently, like, what do you use it for, and what are some things that it's helped you with?
sure. So I coach and consult quite a bit. And what I do is, since I do a lot of writing and a lot of content creation, it's almost silly. You're talking to a recovering academic, though. What phrase do you know? It's like publish or perish, obviously, right? So you're pumping out things all the time. But those AI tools are extraordinarily useful. And there are things that they help you save time with. So let's say I have an idea for something and I have the idea, put it into the AI tools and I get some feedback. It's much faster, it's much quicker. And what used to take me a day or two to think about, what I call percolating, because it's percolating in my brain, the AI just spits it out and it gives you something to use as a sounding board. I think there's a lot of organizations that can see how they can apply it, particularly for content creation and also that assistant. So a writing assistant is very useful for a person in my background. Content creation, there are very useful tools along those lines. And I think for someone who wants to know how to do this and get into it, I think you use several tools and also see how they can particularly apply to your individual situation.
That's awesome. So if somebody wanted to like learn more about what you do, and do you consult with how to apply AI, or is it more of, can you describe a little bit more about like if somebody wanted to get your help, what would you help them with?
Yeah, I think a lot of business owners, I always say, if you're in a small business, here's what the problem of the president and the CEO is. It's lonely at the top. You don't really have someone to interact with. And those are individuals that I can really have a good conversation with and assist them. And also anything having to do with getting a message out. So that might be having to do with marketing, it might be speaking, it might be writing. People want to get a message out. And with a couple of podcasts, the Doctor of Digital podcast, for example, has close to 600 episodes. It means I know something about podcasting. So I've made all the mistakes. I can help somebody else if that's what you want to do and get your message out that way. But speaking, writing, all of those things that would be helpful for a company to get the message out and to brand it in such a way that it truly reflects the authentic person or organization behind those products or services.
That's awesome. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, you can go to the Doctor of Digital podcast is one. I'm also co-hosting the Aftermath podcast. You can reach out to those organizations and those podcasts, but also on Facebook. I'm not surprisingly the Doctor of Digital, on YouTube, the Doctor of Digital, and you can also get a hold of me. I usually tell people, look, put it in the search engine. I'm going to pop up because I've just been out there for a long time and produced a lot of things, and you'll find me. It's pretty easy, but contact me directly if I can be of some assistance.
That's awesome. So to wrap things up, if you had, let's say, 2 million people and you had 30 seconds to drop the message, what would your message be to the masses? Like the most important thing you could share in 30 seconds or less?
Be authentic, be yourself. Don't look for validation from other people or from society. Serve yourself internally and find that internal thing that motivates you to get up every morning. Be true to yourself and be authentic, because authenticity is very difficult to find these days. Lots of phony people out there and artificial things, but be yourself.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that, because if you're not authentic, life number one isn't fun, and it for me it's all about fun, family, being connected to people. So be authentic. That is by far one of the most powerful messages. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hopping on here. And if you have any last comments or anything else that you'd like to say, we'll wrap it up.
All right. Thanks. So anything I do for it, Tyler, more than happy to. And my two phrases, two words, Deus Vult, God wills it.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Hey, what's up? If you want to get access to learn the full process of how to change at a cellular level, click the link in the description. I actually have created a way for you to get access to the Unstoppablepreneur School for free so that you can check it out on a trial so you can experience these changes for yourself. So if you want to learn more, if you want to dive deeper, if you want to go through some of the coolest processes on the planet and the fastest hacks, click the link in the description and we'll see you on the other side. Was it me? No, it was each and every one of you. So we all chose to do that. No one forced you. No one made you. You chose, which is freaking awesome.